Om Sadashiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Param Ishvaro Guratmeti Mochi Veda Vibhagine Vyomabda Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Sava Vedanta Sedanta Gocharam Tamagocharam Govindam Paramanandam Satguru Pranatoshimaham Om Shanti 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 Om Namaste. So we have covered some verse of the chapter 6. So let's just begin here from the 24th. Now, we had here the king, or Dattatreya. I don't even remember if it was Dattatreya talk. No, it's the king Janaka talking to the young disciple, huh? And the guy who has developed a certain vanity in respect to his academic knowledge, and those profound Q&As between the two, and all based on that challenging question now, which was presented to this young inquirer, this young scholar who knew everything, but he did not really know as himself. He did not have the direct and immediate aparoksha jnana. And that celestial being exposed him, and he became her disciple. And then later on he said, so, okay, I have to go. I have other people to help. So stay with the king. King Janaka is the best possible guru for you. And then we begin with these dialogues. And the verse 24 says that the sense of I surpasses the body, surpasses the sense and the mind at the time of cognition of the object. So the sense of I is much more subtle, than these other koshas, let's say. So we have the I, which is reflected consciousness, that is put here as Jivatma or the ego, and it's definitely subtler than the physical body. It's subtler as well than the pranas, and it's subtler than the sense organ, and the objects cognized by this complex body-mind. And the ego remains as the most subtle, and therefore it's overlooked. Invariably, it's overlooked. But it flashes at all times as I, aham, due to what? To original limitless consciousness, which has its own light and has a certain affinity with subtle bodies. And then it produces this aham, which is the human aham, which is the aham we know. I mean, we talk a lot about them, but nobody knows how other animals experience their existence. So we don't know how a cat, a dog, or a crocodile experience themselves. We say that they don't have much of the self-conscious intelligence, but we know that we do. And then we have this I, which is the advertisement, as we saw in the previous class. So is the I is what has to be traced back, as Papaji used to put. So to its source, so that we can understand the nature of this I, because this I immediately it takes identity in the physical body, in the subtle body, in the prana mind, in all the koshas, the I is going to develop attachment and a sense of identification. Huh? So this self, it flashes as I, because this I is self-luminous. And as I said, it loves subtle bodies, and then it appears as aham. So it surpasses the other koshas. Every time we have a perception, it remains there as the most subtle, and to such an extent that the I in the body does not really come into a recognition at the perception of objects. So when we perceive the world, all we perceive is the world. And we can have one experience at a time, one thought at the time. We cannot have even the experience, the body, simultaneously with my computer and with the computer, So we have one thought and one experience of the time. And the I, and the self, the I, is the more subtle. It's totally overlooked. Okay, even the body, even the mind, even the intellect, because everything we do is to get in contact with an object and the thought in respect to the object, and then we don't see the instrument by which we can cognize the world, and much less the light without which we can not cognize anything in the world. Otherwise, two perceptions must be simultaneous, but we know it's not the case because we can only have one thought at the time. Oh no, I'm multitasking, so I can do many things at the same time. Like you go into a customer service trying to get help, and then after a struggle, so you find a human being who is going to try to help you. But the problem is the human being is trying to help 10 people at the same time because they are paid to do that. But they had to stop one client and then jump to the other client, and then you keep talking here and the person is not available and comes back and then tries to understand the thread of the conversation. So it's not possible. We can only engage one object, one thought at the time. But the contention may be made that this flash of consciousness, the I, is not really apparent at the time of perception of the object. So we know that the body must be there, the sense organs must be there, the mind, the integrator of these stimulus have to be there. But we don't perceive the instrument of perception, the instrument of experience. And a contention may be made that the self-consciousness, as the I, is not there in the perception of an object. But as we know, it must be there. Otherwise, no experience would ever take place. The same way we cannot perceive anything in the absence of light, we cannot perceive the world in the absence of consciousness. And because it's the most subtle of the subtle, we miss on that. Yeah? But the logic is so clear. And again, going back to this experiential subtle element about self-recognition or enlightenment, is you understand the logic that the light must be there, consciousness must be there so that they can be conscious of the world. But because it's the most invisible, the most subtle, it's many people believe that because it cannot be experienced, it's non-existent. But the logic proves to us that consciousness must be there. And how it is in there? It's somehow it is within my human experience, intellectual experience of cognition of my environment. So it's happening within me consciousness. Yes, of course. So you have the mind, which is reflected consciousness or human consciousness. So this consciousness is illumining your experience, your own environment. Yeah? And we cannot say that this consciousness is not there by following the logic. And then again, so there is a sense of I am, which is experienced by all beings, all human beings. Everybody experiences the sense I am. This is an experience. I am, isn't it? It's a recognition, but it's an experience. This I is something that comes in the mind of every human being several times a day. I, in respect or in relationship with many things. Yeah? So you are all the time experience the I. So you can never say that because I cannot experience the I as an object, I will never experience the I. You experience the I. Another statement is that every experience is an experience of the self, like James used to put. Is the I is there, experiencing idam, aham, and then the world, the sat in respect to the world, which is supported by the aham. So we experience both all the time, but we somehow we discount that we experience the I. The I is not a thought. One of the beautiful gifts, in my view, of Nisargadatta Maharaj was he was presenting. There was a lot of confusion because he did not have a body of knowledge such as the Upanishad, but he was pointing out that the I am, understand? It was all the time there, present, okay? And go back to I am and stay put and I am, and then you have to find a balance between the thought I am and the feeling I am. You remember, Lin? Nisargadatta Maharaj? His guidelines for the meditation, that was the meditation that mostly helped me, is the meditation on I am, but it was presented in a different way from the way Ramana Maharaj presented it. So you hold on to the thought, feeling, I am, I exist. And then a lot of my friends would go and inspired by the words of Nisargadatta Maharaj on those days, they start meditating, but then after some time they were connected with the thought I am, but then they will come and say, no, I can't do this meditation, it's purely mental. They were never connecting with the feeling I am. You understand? It's a thought, feeling I am, and Nisargadatta Maharaj, find the balance, stay put as I am until you get the feel, a balance between the thought and the feeling. And the feeling is an experience. Every time we feel something, we experience something. So you experience your light of consciousness reflect as your human consciousness. You did a meditation which somehow removed the other thoughts and kept you on one single thought, aham, 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 and then you start getting the fragrance of aham, which is satisfaction, peace. No? So thought, feeling, these are aham. It can be experienced not as an object, but it can be experienced as reflected consciousness, which is the closest we can get to the experiencing of the self. Understand? It's very simple. It's very, very simple. It is available even for experience. Yeah? Some people get the rational, the logic, but then you have to get to the feel of it until your certainty of self-knowledge is firm. Because when you feel the fragrance of your true nature, you start feeling peace and sense of satisfaction and completion. And everybody wants to be happy. Everybody is in the spiritual world to be happy. You understand? So we need to not remain only on the theory now in the rational aspect of it, but it has to fructify, and it is going to fructify when you start sensing, feeling your fullness, not only thinking I am full, but sensing I am full. What is the difference? One is just a concept in my mind, a wishful concept, and the other is a sense of fullness, which is a combination of the knowledge and the sense, which is the fructification of the knowledge. After all, self-knowledge must fructify, and the fructification is the sense, the sentiment of security and peace and confidence, like James used, right? Confidence that what I am cannot be touched or affected by any experience of the body mind. So it is a sense, it is a feeling, it has to transform the person on the experiential level, of course, and that is possible when we integrate this intellectual understanding with a quote unquote practical or experiential or existential putting to the test, and so that you can enjoy the fruits of this intellectual knowledge. So Jesus, Aparakshana, is fructification of the intellectual self-knowledge.
Arlindo, can you maybe talk a little bit about discrimination between that fragrance of the absolute and sort of being stuck in sattva?
Yeah, people get stuck on sattva because they experience the fragrance of their own nature, as peace, silence, and bliss, and so on. But because they were not trained by the Upanishads, they never understand that that is the reflection of my true nature. You understand? I am limitless consciousness, okay, infinite consciousness, and now I'm not only experiencing a peaceful mind, a silent mind, but I have the Vedantic vasana in there. My meditation is not only to the purpose I create an empty and quiet and calm mind, but in that calm mind, I just go back to my nididhyasana until I get a clear understanding of this balance between the logic presented by the Upanishads and the fructification of this knowledge, which is the sense of fullness. This sense of fullness is the benefit of self-knowledge. The Jiva Atma wants to remove the suffering element of the human experience. And it can only be done if you really claim, understand in an existential way that your true identity is not the body mind. The body mind is all the time subject to change. My true identity is consciousness, which is the only reality. And I sense this consciousness because it shines as my eye, the eye of my ahamkara. So, but this eye is not an eye that is deluded or deceived by the pleasures and satisfactions of this reflection, which brings about all this beautiful experience. But no, it's after the final knowledge. And then that is the difference. So your discrimination is going to say, yes, it feels wonderful, but I want to consolidate my certainty, my full conviction, doubtless knowledge that I am that limitless consciousness. I'm not this state of mind. Because the state of mind is going to be past. How I was feeling so wonderful in my meditation this morning, and now how do you feel? So you need somehow to get that knowledge, which is already planted as the logic, the rational, but yet it has to be somewhat realized in a way that produce, it has to produce a certain experiential element to it. I mean, otherwise you are just a dry Vedanta computer, like some people say. Now, I'm a dry Vedanta computer. I know everything. I know Jesus, but are you happy? So has it fructified with satisfaction and love and compassion and everything? You understand? Have you really directly, existentially, you understand that nothing can affect you? Yeah. So I think this is only possible when we apply the aham brahmasmi, né? Of the Upanishads, in that silent reflection of consciousness in which people feel blissed out. You heard my story many times. I was stuck with that experience. I have given up, and then out of the blue, I start having meditation happening more easily, and then it start intensifying. And then I was sitting every time I could, running a restaurant at the same time. And then one day, and then somehow a book of the Guru of Nisargadatta Maharaj came into my hand, which was a distinction between knowledge and experience. And then, boom, it opened my mind. It was my introduction to Vedanta, a year or so before I got into Vedanta. And then I understood that book. That book had an incredible impact on me. And one day I thought, no, I'm addicted to this state of peace and bliss and satisfaction. But it changed. It does not last. It's transient. And then I stood up and I said, no, I want the knowledge. I don't want the experience, because the experience is not reliable. It come and go. So it became clear to me somehow. Shwara put that before me. And then I went for the knowledge, but I did not know how to get this knowledge, but intuitively, as I was trying, I am consciousness, everything is consciousness, all there is consciousness. These fragments of the Upanishad that we find in the New Age world, in the New Age Vaita. But I don't know if I did answer your point, so please.
Yeah, I think so. The remedy to being stuck in sattva is really continued viveka, continued discrimination.
Absolutely. We are not interested. A Vedantin should not be really interested in no mind or peace of mind or silent mind. We are interested in a peaceful mind. So you see, when the mind is full of thoughts, you can't do such a subtle discrimination as the one suggested by the Upanishads, because the discrimination between pure limitless consciousness and the intellect is something so subtle to do that discrimination. You understand? So the mind needs to be very quiet, very, very quiet, right? Very calm. But the problem is when you develop a calm and silent, quiet mind, so you start enjoying a certain reflection that is very pleasant. And then people say, this is it. The story about the this is it gurus, no? So this is it. But it's not it, because that is a state that come and go. No? It's not it. And then what is that I'm searching for, which it's said to resolve myself, permanently. You are looking for the light in which this and that come and go. Yeah. And for that, you need this very subtle discrimination between the light revealing such objects as the one of the bliss and peace and satisfaction of a quiet mind. And then people may have epiphanies or profound insights, but all of that are objects of experience. The only insight that you want really the insight in respect to your true identity as the light. So we need to keep doing that. We need to steer the mind, the quiet mind, the very subtle mind, because if the mind is having other thoughts, you remember the definition of Nididhyasana from Nisargadatta Maharaj. It's a flux, it's a flow of similar Vedantic Upanishad thoughts, in a very subtle, peaceful mind, contemplate its true nature, following the logic of the features of consciousness as my own self. So how are you going to do such a subtle meditation? And we are talking here about Nididhyasana, which is a profound meditation, because we can do Nididhyasana just reading the books or in a Vedantic class. But now we are talking that there is room for meditation in Vedanta, and the profound Vedantic meditation is an Nididhyasana in which you sit quietly in your room, and then you have the teachings already impressed in your intellect, and you are fascinated, you are obsessed by having a certainty of self-knowledge, and then you start remembering, recalling the, the teachings, the teaching in respect to the features of my true nature, all these subtle things. So of course you need a very, very peaceful mind, very, very peaceful mind, meaning to say there are no other thoughts bumping the Vedantic thoughts to the sides. So you stay in that flow, you stay in that mode, and this flux of Vedantic thoughts, And then you know what happens when you do that? You experience incredible bliss. Not only you are going to make this knowledge more and more clear and firm and less subject to doubt, but you're going to experience great bliss. And this bliss is different from the experiential bliss of the reflection of consciousness in a scientific mind, in the sense that this bliss is coming from the knowledge, aham brahmasmi, not from the experience of silence. You understand? So you want this knowledge and the bliss. The bliss of jnana is a bliss that is good. Once it's firm, it's always there. Before it's very firm, it comes and goes, but you at least you work on a true source of bliss, which is jnana. If you want to get a source of bliss which does not include jnana, you are going to be a yogi, okay? You are going to control your mind to produce this experience of silence, peace, which feels good, but you are not doing anything to establish the mind permanently in that kind. There is no such a thing as a permanent state of mind. The jnana bliss or jnana ananda duyani is a mind which is overall is properly established in satisfaction, in peace, in ananda, but it's fluctuating as well. There is no state of mind that is like that. But this knowledge is going to establish the mind of the yoni with a dominance, the dominance of satisfaction. You understand? It's going to variate, but it's going to change like this. Why? Because his or her satisfaction is not coming from the experience, but it's coming from the knowledge. We don't have control over the experience, but we have certain power to gain certain knowledge, and the knowledge is, if it's good knowledge, it's always good. Like the knowledge that 2 + 2 is 4. It's a good knowledge. It is Mithya knowledge, but nobody can challenge that. It's mathematics. So the self-knowledge is a certain knowledge that once gained, it's always good. And then once you have that knowledge, so you have a permanent source of ananda, of satisfaction and peace that is not dependable on Prahlada. You understand? It's always there because it's knowledge. Like the example I was doing. If you are happy or depressed, it's not going to affect your knowledge. 2 plus 2 equal 4. Huh? So, and then when you know that 2 plus 2 is 4, you say, okay, now my knowledge is still good. When you know I am limitless consciousness and no human experience affects me, and then you can be having can have a wonderful, beautiful punya experience or a very difficult, painful experience. That knowledge there to offset the the ups and downs which is inherent to the human experience. You understand? This is the only benefit of self-knowledge is that it's going to purify, integrate the personality, and then you're going to become a more loving, more wise person, and not afraid of that, not afraid of adversities, and there's not much more to self-knowledge.
Thank you, Orlando. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's good sometimes we go off to to look into the nature of self-knowledge, the nature of yana, and the value needs to be developed. We don't value things unless we know and understand things. Most of everybody values experience, even the people in the Vedantic circle still they tend to value more experience because it takes a lot of maturity to understand the value of knowledge, fully understand the value of knowledge. And then we saw, so of course, every time we see and experience object, the sense of I exist, I am, is always there, backing up the knowledge of the objects. Otherwise, I would have the doubt whether I exist or I don't exist. But no, the fact that I experience the world, it's a proof, it's a doubtless proof that I am. So the I is always there. And then the confusion between the body, the intellect with the self, but the perception of the world, yeah, and the shape of the objects in the body is something. But if we identify the body with the self, this is that paragraph that we were a little bit confused. Nor should it be supposed that I is of the body. So we have to understand that this I is not a product of the body. Né? The I, the self, is not part, is not a product or a property of the physical body, matter. So we think that I am the body, and I have a consciousness. My consciousness, people talk all around the place. Oh, my consciousness is getting better, is expanding, and so the body, the I, yeah, we suppose that the I is of the body, but no. So the body is happening within the I, the self. Yeah? So there is that slogan that you are not a body having a conscious experience, but you are consciousness having a bodily experience. So in other words, the bodily experience in regards to the world happens within you. So this identification of the three bodies with the self needs to be broken. And the more we go into it, in its subtleties, the more we understand. Because after all, it's just a question of redefine the I. Yeah? It's just a question of identity. What is this I? It's easily taken to be the body, and then and then the pranamaya, and then the Manomaya and then the Yanamaya. So it gets identified with the body-mind complex. And then we need to do this viveka. Yeah, so when we have an experience, a lot of the time we don't feel like Arlindo, I am having the experience. Because when we experience something, we experience something. But then if you remember, no, but I am experiencing Arlindo as well. No? And then again, this I'm experiencing Arlindo and the world is somehow covering or distracting me from understanding that I am also experiencing the I sense, as Nisargadatta used to say, thought, feeling, I sense. But the I sense is never lost as I experience the object and I experience Arlindo. So what I am is that by which I experience this body-mind construct and the world through this body-mind construct. So the I sense is never really lost as I experience the instrument of knowledge and the objects of knowledge. You see, I love this language, the I sense. The I sense is this experiential element of self-recognition. No? It's the I sense. Ah, no, it's a I thought. Okay. Then Nisargadatta comes and says, it's I thought feeling, thought sense. Okay? That is the continuity of the I. This I is there backing up all experience, including the experience of deep sleep and samadhi. There is something there which is continuous, which is all the time present to experience not only the physical world, the subtle world, but also the deep sleep and samadhi. Otherwise, after deep sleep, a man would get up and not understand who or she is. No? It says, okay, what is my I? So what is my I? I don't know. I don't know in which body this I is now. I was in profound samadhi. No? He could be somebody else hooked up to another physical body with another name and so on. No, this I sense that is so for long associated with body-mind construct does not forget which one is my instrument of knowledge and experience. I can go in deep sleep and then in the morning I remember that my body-mind complex is this one is not of my wife or my husband. So there is an association, a vasana of association between this aham with its instruments of perception. Otherwise, it would be confusing. So this I sense associated with the body is a continuity. And then we have a possible contention that in deep sleep and in samadhi, the self has no attributes or qualification, and therefore is not identical with the ahamkara, the ego. The ahamkara is defined by what? By its characteristics, né? By qualities. In deep sleep and samadhi, the I loses the gunas. Né? He's no longer colored by the attributes of the gunas. And then we say, okay, so now the self remains without its qualities as a person through those two states. Therefore, you cannot say that the ahamkara is identical with consciousness. Okay, so it means to say you can never say that Aham Brahma Asmi, because the Jiva Atma is defined by its qualities, characteristics, and attributes and configuration. Huh? So, and then you say, no, but you are consciousness, but how can we say that is identical? Huh? If the self is free from qualities and attributes, and the aham, the ego, is defined by its qualities and attributes in the wakeful state and in the dream state. And the answer is as follows. I is of two kinds, qualified and unqualified. So the I fundamentally in its true nature, essence, is unqualified, but it shines as the ahamkara, and the ahamkara is defined by its characteristics, no? Configuration. So the answer is no, they are the same, but at the same time they are slightly different. How so? How so I can say aham Brahma Asmi? And although it seems to be a huge contradiction, no? So how can I say that? Because there are two kinds of aham, of I, of the self, the original self and the reflected self. No? So the original self is free of qualities and attributes. No? Is nirguna. No? There is nothing that could define something that's one without a second. If the self was colored by some qualities, and then it would not be a partless whole, non-dual. That would be already something made of certain parts. That's why we never say that the self has certain qualities, attributes, or characteristics. At the most, we say the nature of the self is Sat Chit Ananda, but it's not inclusions. It's not like qualities or characteristics. And the most one Paramahansa says features. And it's even more to the point, the nature. What is the nature of something? And nature of something without which the thing is not the thing. So, but is this this nature of something is an attribute? No, it's nature. It's the nature of something, the essence of something. The essence is that, okay? Before that develops qualities and attributes, okay? So the self is unqualified, but then it appears as the ahamkara, which is qualified. And the qualification of the ahamkara implies limitations. And there lies the apparent contradiction. So the ahamkara is limited. And then the ahamkara is going to say, aham Brahma Asmi. And but Brahman is limitless and free of qualifications. So do I prefer to have qualifications, to be qualified or unqualified? No, I prefer to be free of qualifications, characteristics, and attributes, because then I am full. No? But then how can I say that aham, the ego, the ahamkara, is limitless, unqualified consciousness? No? So one is unlimited by nature, the other is limited by nature. So you have to understand these statements by understanding that what makes the ahamkara designed and qualified by the configuration of its gunas is its fundamental unqualified nature as Satchitananda. So in reality, ahamkara is Satchitananda, because Satchitananda, which is the substratum of existence of all Jiva-atmas, is free and independent of all these gunas, of all these superimpositions. So, and then it's like, okay, I am unqualified in my true, essential, most fundamental nature, and I'm free and I'm limitless. But I appear as the qualified Jiva-atma, and to have a human experience of duality, but that is going to produce what? Limitation. and suffering unless I understand my unqualified nature, and then I can be in the world but not blinded by this avidya, cosmic ignorance. No? Why? Because I'm moving the world, but I have claimed my limitless nature as unqualified consciousness. And then it says, this aham is associated with limitations in dream and awakeful states, but it does not experience limitations in deep sleep and samadhi states. In that case, is the I in samadhi or sleep? Is the I associated with threefold division of subject, object, and the experience? No. Being pure and single, it is unblemished and persists as I, and nothing else. The same is perfection. And then this is the notion of the I, the ahamkara, somehow free from duality, free from the colors of the gunas that is going to appear in the other two states. It's not divided, it's not limited, it's not associated with objects. There is no relationship, nowhere, known, and in knowledge. So this threefold is not there. And then it said that the consciousness appears as pure and single, non-dual, as if it remains as the I, and nothing else. I means to say I, and what are you? I, but how so I? There is no I, in reference to any attribute or quality. It's just I. No? And this is a state of perfection, and we love deep sleep because somehow we have fallen in our unqualified nature, in which there is only I, and the world is not there, and even the experiencer, the body mind, is not there, and that is same as perfection. Whereas Her Majesty, the Absolute Consciousness, is ever resplendent as I. Therefore, consciousness is all and ever knowing. You are that consciousness in your most subtle nature. Here they use the abstract. So you want to know what the hell you are. So you are the more subtle of the subtle. So subtle that you cannot be known as commonly known in duality. Your nature is non-dual, is fullness, ananda. So you are the most abstract. And what is in there for me in all of that? What is in there is freedom. Because if you know your true nature, and if I want to know my true nature. Okay, I have got the truth. My true nature is beautiful, perfect, ahamkara, which is declared as a saint. Okay, this is my true nature. It's pure love and this and that. Okay. So no, you want to know your true essential nature as the most subtle, which is not covered, which not qualified, not even by sainthood. So you want to know your true nature. What is in there? What is in there for me? So you are pure knowledge, you are pure consciousness, you are the most subtle, and you are not qualified by any attributes of Maya, and you are shining as I, unmanifest or manifest through the power of Maya. So now, what is in there to the seeker of self-knowledge, what is in there is once you understand your abstract, more subtle nature as consciousness, as your true nature slash identity, as I tell very often, when you understood that, and then you relax because you know that the body and the mind is not really real. It's subject to change all the time, and is going to experience pleasure and pain according to one's karma. It's going to be born and then die. And you are just consciousness, uh, and this consciousness is of the nature of one without a second, and absolutely nirvikaraha, never changing and never doing anything. It's just pure witnessing consciousness, which fundamentally is not an experiencing entity, but in the case of the yoni, you are that consciousness as the experiencing entity you are, because you are witnessing the world and witnessing the aging body mind, but with total objectivity or totally detached, knowing that everything is just a superimposition or reflection on your true nature as consciousness. So this gives a great sense of peace and relaxation to the yoni. So you want to know your nature, which is unqualified, which is not an experiencing entity, and that knowledge, and only that knowledge, is going to help you to relax, because you cannot be affected by the experience of the body mind. Right? Does anybody want it? A lot of people believe that they want it, but in the end, they want some mystical dualities or realms of experience, of bliss. So you are Tripura, you are this she, you are the most subtle, the abstract, which is the only source of knowledge, consciousness, and existence. And you shine as the eye every time you find a subtle body. Realize it yourself by turning your sight inward. You are only pure, limitless, more subtle consciousness. This is your only nature. Your nature is not the attributes of the gunas. That is your apparent nature as the body-mind construct. And it's not that we want or need to neglect completely my apparent nature colored by the attributes of the gunas and configuration. I don't want to neglect that, but I don't want to be identified with something that is subject to change and time. I knew that my apparent nature as the body mind needs to be taken care and purified and refined to a certain extent, so that I can have a pure, quiet, contemplative mind to do this viveka, to understand my true free nature. Because then, only then, my mind is going to be resolved. How so? The constant remembrance that nothing can affect me gives great peace and security and satisfaction. It's that simple. The fear of death is going to go. Why? Because it's, not even the mind of people die. They just get attachment to the physical body, but they don't die. And once you realize that not only you are the soul or the subtle body, but you are consciousness, and then you don't have even attachment to the subtle body and the desires for another birth. Realize it by turning your sight inwards, following the logic or in the light of the teachings of the Upanishads. You are only this consciousness. Realize it instantly. Now, procrastination is not a quality of a good disciple. Realize it now. The self should be realized at the moment of the instruction. That is the ideal condition. You talk to someone in respect to the true nature of the self, true nature of the reality, and the benefits of this knowledge. And then the self realized at the moment of destruction. Would be in an ideal condition. Provide you the guru finds a disciple which is highly qualified, which is very rare. Then here in verse 27, your eyes are not meant by the aforesaid word sight. Your eyes are meant for this inquiry, this inner inquiry. This is it's difficult to say it's inner or outer, but meaning to say you want to contemplate your sense of identity and redefine it. This is the mental eye. The mental eye is not the eye to get colors and forms. It's the eye of the mind. The mind is the eye of the eye, and then there is something which is the eye of the mind. So the mental eye is what we want to activate here, and develop this Vedantic vision. Because this eye is the eye of the eye of the eye. I'm putting a third eye there, consciousness. But we can see, again, the beauty of Vedanta, it proves us everything. It says, forget the third eye of the eye of the eye, just the eye of the eye. In the dream, you have the eye of the mind. And that eye of the mind is going to see the dream world even when your eyes, the physical eyes, are shut. So we are much more than the physical body. So you need to use this eye to develop the mind, proper mind, to develop the Vedantic, the Upanishad vision of reality. To say that the sight is turned inward is appropriate, so says King Janaka, because perception is possible only when the sight is turned towards an object. Of course, turn the mind inwardly. Turn your sight inward. What do you mean? You mean turn your mind to your thoughts, feelings, and concepts. See what is in there in your mind. And in the beginning, it's very uncomfortable because most people are going to confront great disturbance. Okay, a lot of disturbing thoughts and emotions. But you need to turn your vision to your mind, to see the content of your mind, see what is in there, see the world that lives within your mind, all your fears and desires and so on. Therefore, it is appropriate to say, turn the sight inwardly. Perception is only possible when the sight is turned toward objects. And, oh yeah, but the objects are out. No, in Vedanta, we know that there are physical objects and there are subtle mental, emotional objects, intellectual objects. So we have the mental, the subtle world, which is the mind, and the objects of perception that we all know that thoughts are objects, and there is something within my human experience that perceives those thoughts objects. I perceive the dream world and I perceive my waking dream as I perceive the thoughts creating images in my mind during the day even. Perception is only possible when the sight is turned toward objects. The sight must be turned away from the outer objects and fixed on the inner objects as a means to clear the mind and make the mind more fit for the nididhyasana, the Dantika nididhyasana. So we need to move away from the outer object. That's the beginning of the journey. Okay, let's create a nice environment, a nice lifestyle, so where I'm not bombarded by external stimulus, yeah? coming all the time. So turn away from the outer objects and fix your mind on a particular object in order to see it. Otherwise, that object will not be perceived entirely. So even when our mind is outwardly oriented, we can only perceive one object at a time. We need to disconnect from one object to perceive another one. So how to say disconnect from the physical outward object and bring the mind in contemplation to its inner objects? The fact that the sight is not fixed on it, it is the same as not seeing it. Yeah. So I have many things going on within in my mind, many objects, but if I refuse to see it, it's almost as non-existent, but still it's there and it's conditioning our subconscious mind, which is going to put pressure in our conscious mind, although we are not really consciously seeing and experiencing it. And this says much about the process of purification of the mind, seeing the contents of our mind, and through different sadhanas purify the mind. The same applies to the mind. Now it's going to the mind and its sensations and perception. The mind is going to perceive the inner object and the outer, but fundamentally the mind is going to perceive pain and pleasure, which are not felt if the mind is otherwise engaged somewhere else. So this is so common. People usually keep busy, engaged with the outer world, not allowing the mind to connect to the inner objects, such as painful emotions or pleasurable. Pleasurable people like, but painful, we just suppress those experiences, and the mind is not going to get in contact because it does not want to engage on negative thoughts and emotions. Yeah? So, and then what happens? We keep pushing things in the basement of the mind until the basement is overcrowded, and then people start having different symptoms, such as extreme fear or panic, and other psychological conditions. And sometimes the person is completely destroyed. So the mind is there, and it can experience the outer and the inner. The other perceptions require the two conditions, namely elimination of the other objects and concentration on one object. But for self-recognition, there is a difference. It requires only one cognition. And that is that topic. It says that for when we want to move from one recognition to another thought, sense experience, we need to disconnect and connect, disconnect and connect. And here the author says that the difference with self-realization is that you have to disconnect from the worldly object, the inner and outer. And then what are you going to do? And here it says it requires only that you disconnect from what? From all perceptions. So the outer perceptions and the inner perceptions. So if I'm not connected to any thought object from the outer world, neither with my inner world because my mind became calm, clear, and empty of the world. Okay. And then what happens? It says it's all what is required for self-realization is disconnecting of all inner and outer perceptions. And then the author here says, I shall tell you the reason for this. Although consciousness is unknowable, it is still realizable by the pure mind. So this is something that my first guru used to prescribe to all of us. He used to say, so just be the watcher, such as a watcher on the hill. Watch everything with detachment. And then you just by watching, everything is going to disappear and you're going to experience empty, silent mind. So you are eliminating association with all perception of your outer and the inner feelings, thoughts, emotions, everything. So just be this witnessing watcher. Yeah? And then all there is this beautiful silence and peace. And then it says, and Osho used to say, in that state, consciousness is going to be recognizable by you because it is realizable by a pure, calm, and empty mind. But it's not always the case because when the mind is so pure and empty, it produces a very subtle object which is bliss, experiential bliss, and a lot of people cannot recognize the light of consciousness illumining and revealing the bliss. You understand? So this is debatable, and that was just to finish up. I know we passed the time. When we left Osho Rajneesh after he left his body, and we went to Papaji, and then after some time, several of us got the feeling like I said, "Oh my God, Papaji was making us, Osho was making us wasting a lot of time because he was talking like watch, 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 watch." And then one time I heard him clearly saying, when you have nothing to watch, you have an empty mind and consciousness is going to be there. And then what's going to happen? Consciousness is going to turn upon itself, is going to self-recognize. You understand? So he was pointing like, just watch everything. And then one day the watch is going to turn upon its source as consciousness. That was his instruction. So I don't know. Nearly everybody there, because the instructions were so many, we never came to a point of experience a pure mind watching or experiencing, this emptiness and this silence and this, most people, never came to that. Yeah? But even if we got to that point, it's still the instruction that the mind on its own is going to turn. It was exactly what happened to Osho Rajneesh. You see, most of all gurus that do not teach the scripture, they teach the way it happened to them. Huh? And if they feel confident, they believe, no, it worked for me, it's going to work for everybody. Okay, and here this author is saying the same thing. You eliminate all perceptions, and then consciousness is going to be realizable by this pure mind. Huh? But we're going to talk more about that in our next class, which is going to be next Monday, no? Monday, yeah, in a few days. Okay? Anything from you? Okay, okay. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purna Purnamudachate Purna Sya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishate Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Namaste, my dear friends and students. A great pleasure to meet you again and again. We meet soon again, Ishwara allowing, this coming Monday. Namaste.
Thank you, Arlindo.
Thank you.
Thank you, Arlinda.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you, Ma.